Hey, what's up, guys? Sean here with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Hope everyone's having a great Friday. Yay, we're at the end of the week. And today, we actually have a request from one of my viewers. He had mentioned that he loved the Pocket Change Market Report, which we're going to see one of those here this weekend, like we normally do. And uh, he had a really good question, and that question was, what type of errors is worth even grading? Um, and that's a great question because on the Pocket Change Mark reports, as most of you are aware, I don't showcase any NGC or PCGS graded coins, or Annex for that matter. I've said and kind of proclaimed throughout the years that sometimes it's just not necessary to grade certain coins, especially the lower value type of errors and varieties, things that are traditionally a few bucks or, 5, 10, 15, $20. But there are a few, I would say, error types that are certainly worth sending off to the graders. And the one thing that's kind of like conflicting to me when it comes to grading errors and varieties is that it's so expensive, more expensive than a traditional submission of coins that have no errors or varieties on them. Varieties especially, you got to pay extra for the variety attribution. Sometimes it'll be $5, $10. It varies. Depending on the service that you use. Now, the cheapest service to use would obviously be Annex. They've been around a while, since they're directly competing with the big two grading companies. They have to be a little bit more competitive with the pricing. So that's kind of like the extra value proposition that they offer for grading with them, and that's across the board from regular, just regular coins, and going up to varieties and errors. But you're not going to see my face on this video, but you do see my mouse pointer, and I'm actually going to use this to help kind of navigate through a selection of coins that I found on eBay. That'll either fit the mold of, yes, you should undoubtedly grade this type of coin. And I'm also going to have a selection of other coins that are raw, ungraded, and I'm going to say, yeah, these ones right here, there's just no need to grade these. The really cool thing about errors and varieties is they kind of speak for themselves. When we talk about a certain variety, and I'll just throw this one out there. How about a 1939 doubled Monticello, or double die reverse, Jefferson Nickel, okay, 1939. That's a coin, unless it's like a super high grade, mint state, 65 or 66 or, something to that effect. Traditionally these coins that are being found out in circulation or being cherry picked at the shows, are going to be a little bit lesser grade. A VF example of that variety, I would really tell folks don't grade it at all. Again, with good quality photos, you could easily sell it. Or if it's a coin that you want in your collection, you don't necessarily have to grade it. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few coins. The first one right here is actually a really nice 1966 Lincoln Memorial penny. This one right here is actually graded by NGC. Let me go ahead and bring up the actual slab on here, but you could see that this particular coin is graded as a mint error, mint state 65 red brown. I mean, that's a really nice high-end example of that grade. But go ahead and check out the error attribution on there. It says obverse struck through cloth. And that first picture I showed you guys actually really shows all the detail of what you're looking for this particular type of error. I have successfully, me personally, found only 2 examples spanning 25 plus years of numismatic experience finding coins that were struck through cloth. I mean, when you look at something like this, I mean, it's nice. It's got a lot of that mint state appeal still on there, while parts of the higher higher points of the coins, the parts that are in higher relief, have oxidized to a little bit of a brown, and that's why this particular coin got designated as a red-brown example. But as you can see, it's got the fiber pattern on there, and that's something that typically you're going to look for. Okay, and then people will ask, well, how does some sort of cloth or fiber get into the striking chamber and land onto a coin, or stuck to a die, or something like that? And that's a really great question. Well, they do a myriad of repairs to, and various other parts of maintenance on these minting presses. And, you're going to find that they'll use, wood. Okay, they'll probably use something that looks like almost like a toothpick. That they use probably like dowels and stuff to, kind of help maintain the machines and all that great stuff. Wedges, and then you're going to see a bunch of other things as well. For cleaning, I would say that's where the cloth comes into play, when they're just simply wiping down a part of the machinery, or maybe a piece of cloth had torn off, or maybe they forgot that they were cleaning the mint presses and had left the cloth somewhere on the mint press, and then part of it overlapped into the striking chamber at one point. So, things like that can occur. Something that you have to understand about the minting process is that it's a complete human element thing. We all make mistakes, and that's the very reason why that errors and varieties exist on not only older coinage, but some of the more modern iterations of these. Now, on this example, you're going to see that there's nothing on the reverse to indicate that struck through error on there. It looks pretty well struck. You do see the requisite die file lines, as if this coin might have had clash dies or something. And it's just, when you see them kind of like this strong and abrasive. Sorry, I was stuttering there for a second. It kind of looks like this one did have some clash dies, just based off of what I'm seeing above the monument there on the top right. But when you see the heavy die file lines, they're definitely cleaning up something on that die. Okay, and that's going to be the working die that they're playing around with. So a coin like this, I would say, is a really good coin to grade. Any sort of unique strike through, whether it's a struck through cloth, sometimes we'll see like struck through wire, and the wire is still retained on the coin. That's a really good one as well. And then you see some of the really oddball type strike throughs, like the struck through spring. There are even coins that are struck through like maybe, a screw or something to that effect. Typical strike throughs struck through like grease, or some sort of like combination grease and debris, which actually eventually over time will harden to where it's going to put a bigger impression into the coin once it's struck. Things like that on the minor side of the strike through error scale, those probably don't need to be graded. Okay, those generally carry a minimal value, and if you elected that you wanted to send it out to a grader just for kicks, keep in mind it's going to cost like 30, sometimes $40 to get it graded and attributed. But at the end of the day, you're probably still ending up with a coin that's worth about $5-10. So strike throughs, first one that we're going to talk about. This is, by the way, a really pretty coin. This one's closing up here in about a day. It's at $118. So certainly the value, and that's 11 bids in there. Certainly the value on this one certainly justifies grading, but it has to be the right type of error to justify that expense. All right, so here's the next one that we have here. This is actually a really cool undated Lincoln set that was struck through a kind of like a later stage die cap. You could see some of the ghosting of Abraham Lincoln. You could see just the raised area to the left where Liberty would be. It looks like the die cap might have had a split in there because there's this raised ridge here on the right side of the coin. You really don't have too much remnants of a date. So a later stage die cap will flatten out to the point where it's almost paper thin, but still stuck to that hammer die. And it'll produce coins that look like this, where you actually have some semblance of design detail on the coin. But if you look on the reverse, the coin is pretty well struck. All right, so this is undoubtedly a struck through cap die. This one right here, this type of error, I'm really kind of like split on. Depending on the coin, you might want to grade it. This one is a more obsolete design or type coin, a wheat cent. So, but I think at the end of the day, this is something, because of what it looks like and people know what it is, that it's really easy to sell ungraded. Now, this particular seller, BJ Stamps, by the way, has been around eBay for quite a while. He's got some good stuff. Has this one available for $185. Now, I've seen coins like this, especially in the Lincoln Memorial series, sell for about $20 to $30, and that's kind of like a conservative estimate for something like this. So again, use kind of like your common sense when the whole idea of grading comes up on a neat coin you find. This is kind of like right down the middle. You know, there are some coins that are struck through a later stage cap die that are worth grading. Like if we had for example, Buffalo Nickel or Indian Head Cent, or some other denomination that's a little bit more obsolete. Like if there was a Franklin $50 that was struck through a cap die, without hesitation, grade it. It'll be worth it in the long run, because those are typically very scarce to find with this error type on there. But all in all, this is a really nice coin. If it were me, I probably wouldn't have graded it. Again, that's $30, $40 of expense that you're going to be putting into slabbing something like this. And then, at the end of the day, what are you going to do with it? If you're going to sell it, you might be disappointed by how much you're going to get from it. Unless you just put it up as a buy now listing, at a nice higher price, and hoping that someone picks it up. That's where it'll be worth the money. But you got to make sure that that's going to be your motivation in this. You're not going to just grade a coin, put it on an auction listing, and do like a 7-day listing. This very coin right here that you see for $185 might end up selling for like $30, $40. And that's even graded in this NGC slab. The next one that we have here, this one's really cool. And you typically don't see a lot of these coins in US type. But what we have here is a 1968D. Surprisingly, there's a little bit of a remnants of the mint mark and the final digit of the date in there. But from what you guys can see on your end on this video, this coin looks like it was weakly struck. All right, and that's kind of like the common I guess guess as to what happened to this coin. Take a look at the reverse. To people that are not quite as trained in the art of identifying these type of errors, some will say, yeah, there was a lot of grease on those dies before this thing was struck. However, we have a really unique error, and this is something that's highly identifiable if you could see a lot of weakness on both the obverse and the reverse of the coin. But this 1968 Lincoln cent was actually a coin that was struck on a split planchet. So a planchet, a Lincoln cent planchet, they're all in theory supposed to be constructed the same way. They have the same thickness, the same diameter, and all that great stuff, the same composition. But sometimes you're going to get a coin that's like extra thin. All right, this is going to be a coin that's either going to be struck on a tapered planchet, where you're going to see more weakness on one side than the other, or you're going to have tons of weakness throughout. Okay, so that'll narrow your error choice down to either a die adjustment strike, where the U.S. Mint employees are actually testing the pressurization of every strike for that particular denomination of coin, or it's going to be a coin that was struck on a very thin split planchet. All right, so the planchet of its regular thickness had probably had some impurities in there where it clamshelled and it split apart into two pieces that are like very thin. As you can see, this one weighs only 1.55 grams. And, if you've been keeping track on the the stats for these Bronze Era Lincolns. You guys know these are supposed to weigh at 3.1. So this 1.55 right here is exactly half the weight of an actual full planchet for a Lincoln set. This one's graded NGC. Let's see, it doesn't even have a numerical grade. That's interesting. But it shows all the stats on there. Split planchet, 1.55 grams. It says mint error. All right, so this is a little bit older NGC holder. Something like this, you don't see that often. You actually see it more on Canadian pennies than you do on U.S. coins. You just don't see coins struck on split planchets that often. And we actually have another example here. I would say, yeah, you could probably send this one in. This particular seller is asking $198, which I think is a relatively fair rate for something like this. Obviously, it hasn't sold yet at this amount of money. So I think it's the price is a little bit overshot, but there is some interest because we have 6 watchers on this coin. I would say sometime in the near future, this one will sell. Whether it's for $198 is going to be the question. We also have a very similar coin that was struck on a split planchet as well. This time a Jefferson Nickel. This is a 1960D. All right, so you can see the striations of the planchet after the strike, and this is what it looks like. It looks like a bunch of like scratches. But when a coin is split in nearly half, the coin is going to be a lot thinner. So the original pressure that the U.S. Mint employees had calibrated for this particular coin is for the regular thickness of a Jefferson Nickel, not for a much thinner planchet. So you're not going to get all of the design details upset on here on the strike, and you will actually see a lot of kind of like the raw surface of that split planchet on not only the obverse, but you're going to see tons of weakness on the reverse as well. So, because it's a lot thinner, it's not going to strike up enough pressure or apply enough pressure on the strike to be able to upset all of the design details on both sides of the coin. But this is such a great example of a coin that was struck on a split planchet, because you do have those kind of like, I call it not quite wood grain, but the bark that covers a tree, just kind of like the striation lines that make up the graining of the tree after you've peeled some of the bark off. But this one right here is graded NGC as well. It doesn't have a numerical grade. It's got all of the attributed information for this particular era. It even has the weight at 2.7 grams on there. Again, this is something that I would, without hesitation, grade because of its scarcity. These I do know are quite scarce, and for as long as I've been doing this, I've held a few in my hands. I haven't particularly owned enough examples. I actually have 3 examples of earlier Canadian cents than I do of the U.S. type. But as you can see, this one sold by the same dealer as the first coin, Commonwealth Currency. They have quite a bit of inventory. 14 bids. We're up to $46 with a day left here. This next one that we have here, now you'll notice that this one is just in a 2x2 holder, and this is kind of like a fantastic example of a coin that probably you don't need to grade. This is a 1960s. I mean, it doesn't have a date on there, but I don't know how the seller came up with 1960 as far as the date for the coin, because there's no date on this one. But when you look at the reverse of the coin, you'll see that it's got a great big kind of like fissure. This is not damaged, by the way. This was actually a planchet that was punched out of a strip. The strip, and probably more toward the end of the strip, where you're going to have less beautiful looking areas of surface. You're going to have a lot of fissures and ragged clips and all that stuff on the toward the end of the strip. It's lesser quality planchets that come from that area there. But something like this, because of what it looks like and it's unmistakable in what it is, you don't need to grade this. All right, this is something right here. You could save yourself the extra expense and just go ahead and sell it as is, or add it to your collection. People will say, "Well, I'm not really interested in selling. I want to add it to my collection," and that's good. And that's probably another thing to consider if you have what we call, or what I call, I can't speak for everyone else, but I like to call coins that are going to stay in my possession eternally till my dying days. Kind of like legacy collections. That's why I like to refer them to. Coins that'll be with you till your final days. Coins that are classified as such. If you want to protect them, it doesn't hurt to grade. There's really nothing else to really, benefit off of it. Because once they're gone, you can't take these things with you, obviously. But it'll help, whoever you pass these on to, whether it's, like your spouse or children or other family members, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to sell stuff like this when they're authenticated. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm not a personal advocate of grading everything in sight because it's expensive. And if you don't do your homework regarding the cost basis associated with grading and the shipping, because you do have to ship these insured, it could get pretty pricey, and you're going to find that you've wasted a ton of money grading things that you don't need to do. We have a couple coins left. Now here's another one here that I would say is based off of its look. This is another coin that you don't have to grade. It's a 1974D Lincoln Memorial cent, but it's got a great big, we call it a die chip. It could also be referred to as kind of like a interior die break, excuse me, of sorts. But you can see it right there underneath the Lincoln Memorial. This is actually quite a neat coin. And it's in really nice shape as well. And it's also coming from the Denver Mint, where you don't see nearly the same level or quantity of U.S. Mint errors from. So Denver would have the best quality controls, followed by San Francisco and then Philadelphia. That's where all the really cool, awesome errors and varieties come from, is that particular facility. But this coin right here, as you notice, it is in a 2x2 cardboard holder. And for things like this, again, this is a coin, if you're able to take decent pictures of, you can just sell these raw. All right, you don't need to grade these. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I'd probably check a website like cudzoncoins.com to see if this is attributed on there. Because if it's unlisted, you could possibly get your 15 minutes of fame, submit the coin and images to the folks at Cuds on Coins or Kaneka or some other site that deals in errors. Mad Die Clashes is another one as well. But yeah, something like this, this is an easy sell as it sits. If you grade it, you're going to have a much tougher time moving it for a higher price because, well, someone's going to look at a graded NJC or PCGS error of this type and say, well, I don't want to pay that person's grading fee because it's not worth that. So again, here's another coin that's on its own merit. You could just keep it as is, put it in a holder, and enjoy it. And then finally, of course, we got to throw in just like a super mega huge type coin in here, an error that just transcends everything else that we've looked at up to this point. Now, this thing is quite unique. Unique because it's got two just notable errors that are very scarce individually. We have a 1966 Lincoln Memorial cent that is not only double struck in collar, which means the coin was struck the first time completely, but it never ejected properly. It stayed in the striking chamber, and it probably hopped a little bit and rotated. And that's why you see the rotation here on this particular image of the Lincoln Memorial. But yeah, this is a coin that was double struck in collar. It did not flip over, which means you don't have like the reverse design elements on the obverse and vice versa. But it's also a die adjustment strike, and I don't know how they came up with the die adjustment strike. Die adjustment strikes are very rare as it sits. Usually the trial pieces that the U.S. Mint employees produce to test out pressurization of the strike of that particular denomination of coin usually gets tossed out, destroyed, or what have you. You just don't see them reproduced, all right, for circulation. And the fact that this is both a double struck and a die adjustment strike all on one coin makes this one just an anomaly. As you can see, it's also graded NGC, no numerical grade, although the coin looks like it was cleaned. Now that just might be my eyes, especially from this picture right here. It looks like there was something funny going on before it was submitted. But this is a coin. If you did find something like this, this is a 100% auto grade. You shouldn't even have to think about it twice, send it off. And probably eBay is not the best kind of like, platform to sell a coin of this value on. I mean, you can sell successfully these type of coins on eBay, but I would certainly probably consign it to like Great Collections or possibly Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers. They love dealing with coins like this because they'll make it kind of like the centerpiece of like a specific section on their listings, like error coins, and they'll show featured on there and they'll highlight it, and it's going to be a better experience for you as a seller. And because it's graded, there's no really big mystery or secret as to what's going on with the coin. It's got all the information on there. But if you have a coin like this that's worth, tens of thousands of dollars, I mean, without a shadow of doubt, this is going to be something that you would send to a grader regardless. But those are just a handful of coins that I had found. They're all quite interesting. Some of them more than others. And, if you're able to define exactly what a minor U.S. Mint error is, any sort of minor U.S. Mint error shouldn't ever need to be graded at all. Some of the ones that are graded on this list are more on the major side, but again, they're also incredibly scarce pieces that come up so infrequently that again, it might be like a once in a lifetime find, and that's how I'm treating the specific graded error coins on this list here today as unique once in a lifetime finds. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. If you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and throw them down below. Let me know what you think. Again, if you can avoid grading at all, especially when it comes to reselling, that would be best. Again, why spend the $30 to send something out when the coin is still going to be worth a low value? And that'll help you a long way. So you'll gain a lot more knowledge from it as well. But like me, you could take from some of my lessons. I've actually sent out minor errors before. Come to find out, the coins weren't worth a whole lot of money. But my stat sheet, I've probably wasted a few $200-300 sending out minor errors, like minor little cuts and just trivial like off center or misaligned die coins that are really in really nice shape. Those coins, don't bother sending out. But this is kind of like a small list of coins I would consider. And that's it, guys. That's going to go ahead and do it. Stay tuned for the Pocket Change Market Report that's going to be dropping here in the next 24 hours. Again, I'm your host, Sean, with BlueRidgeSilverhound. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to today's content. Hit the dislike button if you don't like anything about it at all. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this one. You guys take care. Happy hunting this weekend as you go and pick up some coins or cherry pick at a local shop or show. But that's it. I love you guys. Take care. And yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it. So long.